Have you ever found yourself in a weird conversation? I was at a particular event and I found myself trapped in this just strange conversation. And I offered my time. I wanted to be generous and speak and be kind. But after this conversation just seemed to drudge on and on, I just realized that there was no means to an end in this conversation. Now, my physical and my verbal cues gave no indication to the person that I was talking to that I was in this inward struggle and I really wanted to keep it that way. And so, the person I was traveling with, I needed to let them know that I was drowning here and I needed help. So, he was actually sort of in sync with me. He could see what was going on and was just waiting for a cue to let him know that I needed help. So, with very little movement, I just lifted my sunglasses and I gave that like wide eye that goes, I need help. And within moments, he stepped in with an excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but we really need your help over here. Now, communication is powerful. I didn't say a word and I barely made a movement, yet I was still able to communicate a 911 distress call. We're all communicators, yet few of us would claim to be. Now, from the moment you're born, I just want to prove it to you. You're a communicator. But when you're unhappy or when you were hungry or when you were dirty, you just innately knew to cry as a way of communication. No one had to teach you that. You're born with the ability. Now, today, in the business of better communication, part one, I want to show you that your struggle is not that you aren't a communicator, but maybe you just haven't sharpened those skills. So, we're going to identify the results of bad communication and then three simple ways that you can begin to be a better communicator. So, welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Let's get started.
Well, that's excellent.
Well, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. Hey, if this brings value to your life, will you do me a favor? Will you like, subscribe, and share this with other people? I just want to add as much value to as many people as possible. Communication is foundational to all of our lives. It's one of the most valuable skills that you can have. As a matter of fact, many relationship experts say that the number one reason for failed relationships is, guess it, poor communication. 70% of global employers say that communication is the most desirable skill for potential employees to have. So think about that. If you're looking for a job today, communication is one of the most desirable skills that employers are looking for. Now, at an individual or organization level, if we're not looking to increase our ability to communicate, we're just causing ourselves harm. 70% of workers say in the workforce, maybe in your organization, that wasted time is because of poor communication. 53% say that stress and burnout is just simply because of poor communication. We don't know what to do. We don't know what's happening. So it's adding stress on them. And then 28% say a bad customer experience is because of bad communication. Are you or possibly your organization suffering simply because of poor communication? So here's what I want to do. I want to take a look at the progression of poor communication if we don't correct it in our lives and in our organizations. Maybe today, your relationships, your marriage, your relationship with your kids or your family, your coworkers, the people that lead you or the people that you lead, some of the friction, some of the pains and the problems that you experience could simply be because of poor communication. So let's look at this progression together. The first thing that poor communication does to us is poor communication kills clarity. Poor communication, kills clarity. The inability to communicate effectively creates confusion. And a good indication that there may be confusion in your organization or in your relationships is this very conversation that goes something like this. Well, that's not what I said. Well, that's exactly what you said. No, I know what I said. Well, I know what I heard. Have you had those conversations? Maybe you had one of those this week. Maybe you instigated it. Maybe you were the one who heard it, or maybe you're the one that you thought that said it. That's often simply just because of poor communication that's causing confusion. You may also find confusion because important details have failed to be communicated or the instructions weren't clear. See, when people aren't communicated with clearly, they begin to make assumptions. And this only increases confusion. When people begin to make assumptions, it means there is a blank in the middle of the content, in the middle of the statement, in the middle of the chore, in the middle of the task, in the middle of the mission. And so people begin to fill that in on their own, simply as they see it, because of a lack of clarity in communication. So another thing that poor communication will do is poor communication will kill confidence. Poor communication kills confidence. You see, living in a state of confusion because of poor communication is a confidence killer. If people are consistently confused and aren't confident in what's going on, it will kill confidence every time. You begin to think things like this. Well, it only causes problems and pains when I speak up, so I'll just stay quiet. I won't say anything. You lose confidence to say how you feel or even to ask for what you want. And then this can make you feel disconnected. It makes you feel undervalued, and it causes you to withhold contributions within your team or organization. And when you're withholding and you're not expressing all the gifts and the abilities and the work that you would like to put in, it kills the confidence in your place on the team. Another thing that it will do is it kills connection. Poor communication, it kills connection. See, without confidence to communicate, then staying silent, that causes your relationships to suffer. And because you remain quiet, there are unaddressed issues that put a strain on relationships that eventually lead to resentment and anger. Think about some of the things that maybe is present in your relationships today, that if there was just a conversation, if you were just able to express your view or how you feel, the things that would change. But because of this progression, now you won't fully engage or collaborate with other people. And this means that your creativity and your input is not being expressed, and then that kills your passion. You're not fully connecting with the people around you, so you definitely aren't expanding your social circles through like networking and meeting other people. You've given up on that. It's killed the connections in your relationship. And then when you put all three of these things together and it's not corrected, ultimately poor communication, it kills careers. Poor communication is a career killer. Because of confusion and your lack of confidence and that lack of connection, you may be perceived as being distant or not engaged. People may wonder, well, why are they so distant? Why don't they engage with us anymore? Why don't they come to the conference? Why don't they speak up at the table? Why aren't they at the staff meetings? Why do they sit so quietly? Why are they not performing to the top of the ability that we know that they have? See, your lack of confidence, it causes you not to speak up, not to offer ideas, not to offer feedback or even critique. And then sitting quietly, it prevents you from gaining the influence or leadership that maybe you could gain within your organization. And then ultimately, the inability to communicate, it can cause you to miss out on important opportunities for advancement, for recognition, or for career growth in your organization, all due to an inability to communicate your skills, your achievements, or your goals effectively. Now, if you find yourself struggling in any of these areas, I don't want you to be discouraged because I know communication is tough. I know many of us, we've tried to communicate before and it just didn't land. It didn't go the way you thought that it was going to go. We had envisioned it in our mind, the outcome of this conversation, the outcome of the communication, and it just did not go the way you thought it was going to go. But I believe that everyone has the ability to be a great communicator. Understand that communication, it's not just giving a talk. It's not just leading a podcast or leading a presentation in front of other people. Communication is expressed in lots of different ways. Obviously, verbal communication, but there's nonverbal communication. Many of you would say you're happy, but your face doesn't show it. If you're really happy, let your face know about it and let the world see it through your face. It's nonverbal communication. There's visual communication and there's written communication. There's lots of ways that we can sharpen our skills in communication. So today, I want to offer 3 simple ways that you can begin to sharpen those skills and to grow as a communicator. This way, it extends to every form of communication in your life. This will impact your family life, your life with your friends, your life in the office, your life with everybody that you come in contact with. So let me give you the first one. You need to speak with clarity. Speak with clarity. I believe that the foundation for communication is clarity. I would much rather engage with someone who communicates clearly than someone who is charismatic or even creative. Charisma nor creativity matter if a clear message isn't being communicated. I know a lot of people would say, well, I'm not that creative. I don't know how to put something together in a creative way. I'm not that charismatic. I can't let people just be sucked into the way I'm communicating. But let me tell you, you can have those two elements, but without it being clear, it does not matter. I find that one of the best ways to ensure clarity in your communication is to eliminate assumptions. Never assume that people know what you're talking about. You can't communicate through the lens of, well, they probably already know this or they've heard this information before. No, you need to communicate your content as if it's the first time anyone on the planet has ever heard it. This helps to ensure that no information is missed. It's also important to note that when you communicate, most people filter what they hear through their past experiences. They filter it through their personalities. They filter it through their personal bias and their personal opinions. So you have to ensure that you communicate with such clarity that you eliminate the assumptions that people can make when communication isn't clear. Now, this clarity will also eliminate confusion. The confusion of what you meant to say and what you actually said, and what they think they heard and what they actually heard. It brings crystal clear communication, crystal clear information to the person who's listening to you. Another thing that'll help you with your communication is to speak with accuracy. Speak with accuracy. This is incredibly important. Inaccurate or inconsistent communication immediately discredits your message. So if you share something that's not absolutely true, you're immediately discredited. For example, let's say you've been tasked with presenting in a staff meeting, maybe information that was emailed to your entire department. So you begin by sharing statistics from that email. But it just so happens that the statistics you share in the meeting is not consistent with the content that was in the email. So immediately you lose trust and you lose credibility with those who are listening to you, simply because maybe it was in the ballpark, maybe you just missed it by just a little bit, maybe you just crossed a few pieces of information. But to those who are listening and trusting the information that you're bringing to them, if it's not accurate, you have lost credibility and you have lost trust from your listener. So you have to make sure that you have a full understanding of what it is that you're communicating. You have to spend time to make sure that you're accurate in the information that you're sharing. And when you do this, this will keep you accurate. It'll increase your confidence and the credibility of the content that you share. Now, this doesn't mean you have to memorize everything. You don't have to have everything memorized, but you do need to be able to, what I call, adapt on the fly. That means if someone has a question, you need to be able to address that question. You need to be able to answer the questions that are asked. And then if there's a dialogue about the content or what it is that you're sharing, you need to be able to engage in a meaningful dialogue so that you can bring out accurate information of what it is that you're communicating. I think about it this way. I think about it in terms of a police report. If you've ever been involved in anything that needed a police report, you'll find that a police report is one of the most accurate documents, down to the most minute details. For example, the report of a wreck wouldn't just say 2 cars collided. No, it would state most likely the year, the make, the model, and the description of each vehicle. It wouldn't just state that the vehicles were damaged. It would explain the damage, the location of the damage, and what happened. It would tell who's at fault, were there lines crossed. It would give all the important information surrounding this incident. The reason is that a police report is full of accurate detail is because it must be trustworthy to determine what is true. If you have to go to court and that has to be presented to a judge, we have to know that everything stated is accurate. And so by bringing all of those details and bringing it down to every minute piece of information, it builds your trust and it builds your credibility. Another thing about communication that's important that I think will be very helpful is to speak with simplicity. Just speak with simplicity. For example, one of the responsibilities my 8-year-old son has at home is to feed our dog. And my son will often begin this conversation with something like this: Chief, which is our dog's name. And he says, "Do you want to?" And typically he would say, "Do you want to eat?" or "Are you hungry?" But what he does is he says, "Are you?" And then he begins to spell words like Food. Do you want food? Are you Hungry, Hungry. Do you want to EAT? Now, my dog does his best to try to understand what he's saying. He's watching closely. His ears are standing up. He's doing the whole, head tilt thing. But it doesn't connect with my dog until he hears a simple sentence, very simple. Are you hungry? Do you want to eat? Communicating this way, it may make my 8-year-old feel smart because he's displaying his superior knowledge to our dog. It may give him a feeling of seniority or power, but it doesn't accomplish anything. He didn't add any value to our dog. The desired outcome is that the dog is fed, not impressed or confused. When you speak, the desired outcome is that people gain value from what it is that you've communicated, not that they would be impressed and not that they would be confused. Simplicity reinforces clear communication. It assists you in your accuracy, and it helps people understand, retain, and apply what you have communicated. You want them to walk away with clear, tangible value that's been added to their life. Now, to help you with simplicity, here's just a few little things that I'll give you, few little bullet points that I think are very helpful in just thinking about your communication. So like, avoid big words and complex terminology. Just use common words and phrases. Don't let your words or the phrases that you use be a barrier to people who are listening. You want to make it as easy to understand. You're not trying to impress. You're not trying to over communicate in a way that makes you feel superior or very smart. Just use common words and phrases that everyone in your audience can grasp. Another thing is you can break down your message into just easy to understand tips like 1, 2, 3 or ABC. Think about it in the context of our podcast here. I often like to present things in a few barriers that we have, and then I also like to provide some application or some points, and I like to give us some steps that we can begin to take. I like to have steps. I want to know I can start here, then I can progress to this, and then I can do this, and this will be my desired outcome. So when you break it down and you give people very easy to understand action steps that will take them to a desired outcome, it helps you in your simplicity. Another thing is to use examples and stories. People can relate. When I talk about my 8-year-old son, many of you think, oh, that's what my child does, or that's what my grandkids do, or you begin to share things that are relatable to people who are listening to you. And that way it builds your message. Everyone is able to relate, and so we all walk away with added value to our life because of what you shared. Now, don't communicate to elevate your ego. Communicate to educate and empower other people. You want people to be better because of what you have deposited into your life through personal communication. So I would encourage you to do this. Just take a personal and professional inventory just to see if you're on a progression of poor communication. And then practice these 3 just very simple principles for better communication. And then on our next episode, The Business of Better Communication, Part 2, you're not going to miss this. We're going to discuss 4 simple ways that you can actively review your communication to see how you're doing. So this is going to help you reinforce these steps today, and then it's going to hold you accountable to your growth. Now, I would love to help you and your organization improve in all areas of communication. This is one of my most favorite areas to help other people grow. So you can use the link in the show notes and schedule a free 15-minute personal consultation with me just to see how I can add value to you and your organization. Now, I love the feedback that I'm receiving from all of you, so be sure to just share your thoughts across all of my social media platforms. I would love to hear from you. And if this adds value to your life, as always, please take a moment to like, share, subscribe, leave us a review. All of these things help to ensure that we can reach as many people as possible. So I want to say thanks again for being a part of the Mind Your Business podcast. It's always better when you're here. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Go, have a conversation, communicate, and sharpen those skills. We'll see you next time.